all-inclusive current affairs for prelims 2021 polity class number 2. This video will be in English. अगर आपको हिंदी में वीडियो चाहिए तो वो भी हमारे YouTube चैनल पे अवेलेबल है. There's a clarification for the polity class number 1. There by mistake I said that right to property is not a constitutional right. Actually, it is a constitutional right. Okay, it is a constitutional right under Article 300A, just like I told in that class. It is not a fundamental right because Article 300A does not come in the part 3 of the Constitution. Okay, so right to property is not a fundamental right, but it is a constitutional right under Article 300A. September news of All India Radio. Government says that in the monsoon session, in that year's particular monsoon session, the question hour and private members bill would not be taken up. So what are these question hour, private member bill, 0 hour and everything? To understand question hour, we need to understand what is parliamentary form of government. Okay, so this is the public, the voters. Voters choose Lok Sabha. Now this is Lok Sabha. Whichever party or a group of allies get 50% majority, they form the executive, right? So here is the executive. So executive, how is executive formed from the parliament? In the Lok Sabha, these are all 50% are from, let's say, from BJP, right? Now these 50% MPs are supposed from BJP. All of them are not a part of executive. They have their government. There's a BJP ki sarkar. There's a government of BJP, but all these MPs do not form part of executive. Only few of these MPs, okay, a few of these MPs are made ministers. Now it is these ministers which actually form the executive. That is the Council of Ministers. Okay, so here in India, we have parliamentary form of government. That means that the executive is formed from the legislature. Okay, executive is formed from the legislature, from these ministers. Now what happens in USA? USA has presidential form of government. There, people, these are the people, they choose legislature and they choose executive. Okay, there when the executive is made, like Biden is a president there, so Biden does not take his ministers from the legislature. Okay, Biden does not take his ministers from the legislature. He can make anyone, whoever he wants, he can make that person as the minister to form the executive. Okay, so executive there is not formed from legislature. So here in India, executive is formed from the legislature. Hence executive has to be responsible to the legislature. In USA, executive is not responsible to legislature. In India, executive is responsible to legislature because it is formed from the legislature. Okay, now this concept is clear, I hope. So what are the tools? How do you ensure that the executive remains responsible? There are many tools, like you can question the ministers. There can be discussions in the parliament. You can move some adjournment motion, no confidence motion, and other things. So question hour is a tool to ensure parliament's control on executive. The first hour of every sitting is a question hour. UPSC can ask that is question hour mentioned in the rules of procedure? Yes. Both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have their own rules of procedure. In those rules of procedure, question hour is mentioned. Government has suspended question hour. Has government done this for the first time? No. Previously also in the years 1962, 1975, 76 and so on, it had been suspended many times. Can you ask a question during question hour to a private member? Yes, of course. See, I just now told you that the purpose of question hour is to ensure parliament's control over executive. Right. Now in this Lok Sabha, these are all, let's say, opposition members. Okay, now in these opposition member, there is one member A and this is member B. Okay, both of them are private members and from opposition. Can this person, this MP, put a question to this person? Yes, he can. But the condition is that there should be a specific purpose. For example, if this MP had brought some bill and this MP wants clarification, then yes, he can question him. So the questions are not always directed towards the ministers. Okay, remember this, questions are not necessarily always directed towards the ministers. Questions can be asked to private members also. There is a condition that a Lok Sabha MP can ask only one starred question in a day. Starred question means that you need oral answer. Okay, now there is limited time that how much Lok Sabha can sit. So therefore there is a limit on the number of oral questions one can answer, and that is one starred question per day per MP. So the important things that you have to learn for prelims is that unstarred question means the answer will be in written, and since the answer is in written, you can't ask any supplementary or follow-on questions. However, in starred question, answer is oral, hence you can ask supplementary questions. In both of these type of question, you have to give a notice of 15 days. You give a notice today that I want to ask some questions. After 15 days, your question will be answered. If you are in a hurry, you want the answer quite early, then you can simply say that please register my question as a short notice question because I want the answer within 10 days. Short notice questions are answered orally, hence supplementary questions can follow. Now these were important things. I don't think UPSC will ask you the limits. Still, we can study this. So the limit is that in Lok Sabha, in a day, 230 questions, unstarred questions can be asked. Okay. If there is president rule in some state, then in that case, this limit is increased to 255. In Rajya Sabha, limit per day is 155. For oral answers, in Lok Sabha, 20 answers can be answered in a day. In Rajya Sabha, also 20. Now this is Lok Sabha Rajya Sabha's limit. But what about the limit of a member? So a member can ask in Lok Sabha in a day maximum 5 questions. And out of these 5, if he asks one question which is to be answered orally, then he can answer only 4. He can ask only 4 unstarred questions. In Rajya Sabha, the limit per member is 7 questions total per day. So following information is not much important for prelims. Still we can see. In Lok Sabha, since the beginning, the first sitting of Lok Sabha was in 1952. Okay, from the first sitting itself, almost then, since 1952 basically, almost on all days, question hour is there, but not in Rajya Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, initially question hour was only for 2 days per week, but since 1964, question hour is asked every day. However, there are some days when question hour is not taken up. That is on the budget day when the budget is presented, or after elections a new Lok Sabha is formed. So in the first session of the Lok Sabha, question hour is not there generally, and when the president addresses the parliament. Now when does the president address the parliament? When after elections a new Lok Sabha is formed, or after the on the first sitting of the parliament in the new year. Okay. 0 hour. So question hour started at 11 a.m. for 1 hour. So by 12 noon, question hour ends and 0 hour starts. Now what is the meaning of 0 hour is that once question hour ends and the normal agenda of the house is taken up, the time gap between them is called as 0 hour. Okay, it's a very informal device. It is not mentioned in the rules. Question hour was mentioned in the rules of the two houses. 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of the two houses. It's an informal device. To raise a matter during 0 hour, you need not give any notice, any prior notice, like 15 days earlier or 10 days earlier. Okay, you can give the notice same day. Same day in the morning, you tell to the presiding officer that today during 0 hour I will raise this issue. Okay, so no prior notice is needed. It has been practiced since 1962. So if you are not satisfied with the answer, you can request the presiding officer to allow discussion for half an hour. Okay, half an hour discussion. Or you can also ask for a longer discussion. If the presiding officer allows the short duration discussion, then it will be for 2 hours maximum. The discussion can be for 2 hours maximum. If there is a serious issue, you think that the government is running away from its responsibility, there is a serious issue that needs to be discussed, but government is not giving enough time to it for discussion. Then 50 members, if 50 members agree, then an adjournment motion can be accepted. Adjournment motion adjourns or interrupts the normal business of the house. Hence, it is considered as an extraordinary device. Okay, this extraordinary device is like a censor on the government, on the executive. Hence, it is not taken up in Rajya Sabha. Okay, Lok Sabha can bring down the government. Rajya Sabha cannot bring down the government. Since it's an extraordinary device like a censor on the government, it is applied only to Lok Sabha, not to Rajya Sabha. So it is not allowed in both the houses. If an adjournment motion is accepted, then the discussion has to be for minimum 2.5 hours. Okay, here we said that short duration discussion was for maximum 2 hours, but here we are saying since adjournment motion has raised a very important issue, so for minimum 2.5 hours you have to discuss it. Okay, UPSC can confuse by saying that maximum 2.5 hours, and it should not raise a question of privilege. There should be something substantial. You have so many tools. You have like question hour, half an hour discussion, short duration discussion, adjournment motion, and many other things also. If none of these things work, if you couldn't raise a matter under any of these rules, then you can still raise some issue by you can still raise the issue in Rajya Sabha under the rule called as special mention notice. You can say that, sir, I want to present a special mention notice. Okay, I want you to raise something important, but it could not be raised earlier under any rule. Okay, when such a thing is done in Lok Sabha, it is called as notice under rule 377. So in prelims, UPSC can ask that notice under rule 377, what is its purpose? Options will be to introduce a short duration discussion, to request an adjournment motion, something like that. Okay, so answer will be none, no, nothing. For raising matters that could not be raised under any other rule. A previous year question of 2017. Parliament exercises control over Council of Ministers. Through what tools? So these are all tools now we discussed. So here it is adjournment motion, yes. Question hour, yes. And supplementary question, yes, absolutely. So all three are correct. Private members bill. So like I told you that this is our Lok Sabha. In Lok Sabha, some party which has 50% majority forms a government, and of those 50%, there are some who are made the ministers. Okay, this is Lok Sabha. In Lok Sabha, there are some ministers. So except these ministers, okay, except these ministers, everyone in the house is a private member. Okay, so a member of parliament of BJP, okay, he is also private member. If he introduces any bill, he is not a minister. A BJP MP in Lok Sabha who is not a minister is also a private member. If he introduces some bill, it will be a private member's bill. Okay, so you have to remember this. It's a private member bill means a bill introduced by a non-minister MP. It is discussed on Fridays only in the last 2.5 hours. To introduce this bill, there should be a notice of at least 1 month, and it is your own responsibility that you draft it. When a minister introduces a bill, it is drafted by the bureaucrats of that ministry and after inter-ministerial consultations also. For example, the farm laws, the farm bills that were brought by the government, okay, they would have been framed by bureaucrats in the agriculture ministry after consulting bureaucrats in the finance ministry, law ministry, and other such ministries. Okay, but if you are bringing a bill on your own as a private member, then you have to, it is your responsibility to draft it. In India, till now, 14 private member bills have been passed. Every year, in every Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, thousands of private member bills are introduced, but only 14 are passed. Okay, almost every private member wants that his bill should be passed, and they bring a lot of bills. Okay, thousands of bills are brought, but only 14 have passed till now. In 1956, within 1 year, 6 private member bills were passed. One among them was this one. We will see what is this. And the last private member bill was passed in 1970. Can a private member bill amend the constitution? Yes, it can. The simple thing is that to amend the constitution, you need two-third majority in both houses, right? So yes, if that condition is met, it can definitely amend the constitution. Okay. Now, a question in prelims 2017. A private member bill is a bill presented by MP who is not elected but nominated. Here he is trying to confuse us. He's saying that in Rajya Sabha there are 12 nominated MPs. So he's talking about that. So this is wrong. Okay, it is not about nominated or elected. It is about non-minister. Recently, a private member bill was passed for the first time in India's history. Nahi. Okay, the last time a private member bill was passed was 1970. Now, one very important private member bill that actually became a law was this Parliamentary Proceedings Protection of Publication Act Bill 1956, which later became an act. So this bill was introduced as a private member bill by Firoz Gandhi in 1956. It said that if any media house publishes a true account of the parliamentary proceedings of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, then no court shall admit any civil or criminal case against that publishing house. Okay, so it is to ensure the freedom of media, the freedom of press, right? So it was a good bill, and it was passed by the parliament. Now, when there was emergency in 1975-76, this bill was repealed. Obviously, then also government was trying to suppress the free speech and free media. So obviously, government took many measures to suppress the newspapers, and therefore government during 1976 repealed this act. Okay. Now, when the emergency ended in 1977. In I think April or May, this bill was passed. Okay, a new law was brought because the earlier act was repealed, right? So you have to now bring a new law. So similarly, almost similar law was brought again, and it was passed by the parliament in 1977, ensuring the freedom of press. To ensure that in future no such thing happens again, government of that time, through the 44th amendment, okay, inserted this freedom in the constitution itself. So right now, this freedom of press to report parliamentary proceedings is a law as well as a constitutional right. Sessions of parliament. So sitting, okay, session versus sitting. So what is the difference? Sitting is just like a meeting. So parliament meets when parliament is in session. Suppose today is Thursday. Okay, so today parliament meets. So today's meeting will be called as a sitting of Lok Sabha, a sitting of Rajya Sabha. So in a sitting, obviously there is, like, suppose this is Lok Sabha, there are MPs here, and here is your presiding officer. Okay, here is your presiding officer. So when the meeting ends, the presiding officer simply says that the house is adjourned and the house will meet again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Okay, so the adjournment is done by the presiding officer, not by the president, because it is simply a meeting. Okay, the meeting is today closed, has ended, tomorrow we'll meet again. However, if the presiding officer does not tell the next time of meeting, the presiding officer simply says that the house has been adjourned. He doesn't tell the next time of meeting. In that case, we say adjournment. We say that it is adjournment sine die. Sine die is Latin for without day. Okay, that is without day. You are adjourning the meeting of the house, the sitting of the house, without telling when will it reassemble. Now, what is a session? Session we all hear in news, like budget session of the parliament in February. During monsoon session, in July to September there is monsoon session. During November, December there is winter session. Okay, the time period between the sessions is called as recess, right? Now, who calls the session and who ends the session? It is a president. Okay, presiding officer is concerned about the sitting, the meetings, but calling all the MPs from all over India to come to Delhi in the Parliament House, that summoning the MPs and ending the session is the responsibility of the President of India. ending the session is also known as prorogation. And what is dissolution? Okay, when the Lok Sabha has a term of 5 years, after that Lok Sabha is dissolved. So that dissolution of Lok Sabha means the life of the existing Lok Sabha has ended, elections will be held, and new MPs will take charge, and a new Lok Sabha will be formed. Okay. Now, how many sessions should be there in a year? So usually 3 sessions are held, but it is not written in the constitution. Constitution simply says that the gap between 2 sessions should not be more than 6 months. Okay. So constitution does not tell you that whether you have to conduct 3 sessions or 4 sessions. It simply says that time gap should not be more than 2 sessions, should not be more than 6 months. So this was asked this year. President can summon a session of parliament at such place as he thinks fit. Absolutely correct. Now think that suppose there is some serious health issue in Delhi, that it is extremely risky for the MPs to come to Delhi. So in that case, president can summon a session of parliament at some other city also. Okay, so this right is given to the president by the constitution, right? And he summons the session, okay, not the presiding officer. Constitution provides 3 sessions of parliament in a year. No, constitution says there should not be a gap of more than 6 months. It does not say that there should be 3 sessions. There is no minimum number of days that the parliament is required to meet. Absolutely. Okay, the parliament does not say that you have to meet for 10 days or 20 days in a year. No such thing. So 1 and 3 are correct and second is wrong. Parliamentary committees. See, the work of parliament is quite large. Parliament has to make the laws. Then parliament has to question the executive. It has to monitor what are the actions that executive is taking. Okay, is it in law? Is it in confirmation with the powers given to the executive? Is executive exceeding his powers? Is executive utilizing the money of the public properly or not? Okay, there are many things. So therefore, but parliament is not in session throughout the year, right? So therefore some committees are made for specific focus on specific matters. Therefore there's a concept of parliamentary committees because parliament has limited time and expertise. Now there are generally 2 types of committees, permanent and temporary. So some work is permanent, like there are some public sector companies, some government owned companies. Now obviously these companies are working 365 days, right? So any report on them, whether they are functioning properly or not, okay, that is a continuous process. Every year budget will come, okay, after every some months some ministry will be asking for some grants, some new policy will be made. Okay, so there is some continuous work. For such continuous nature of work, there are some permanent committees, right? And there are some temporary work also. For them there are temporary committees or ad hoc committees. Once the work ends, they cease to exist. Fine. Now here this news article about parliament and its panels, it says that there are some department related parliamentary standing committees. Okay, standing committees which are permanent. They are department related. They are focused on some departments. Now here the article is pointing out that the term, it is generally believed that the term of these committees, department related parliamentary standing committee, the term is 1 year. Now here this person is pointing out that the term of the committee is not 1 year. It is the term of the members. Okay, because the committee is a permanent committee. However, every year new members are brought to the committee and old members are retired. Okay, so you have to, basically there was some speculation that the term of the members will be increased from 1 year to 2 years. So for prelims you have to just remember that the term is 1 year, not 2 years. Are the parliamentary committees mentioned in the constitution? Yes, constitution mentions that there should be some parliamentary committees, but constitution does not tell what will be their composition, how many members from Lok Sabha, how many from Rajya Sabha, whether the tenure will be 1 year or not, or 2 years, whatever things. Constitution empowers the 2 houses to give these details by framing the rules. Fine. In prelims, UPSC can ask that a minister cannot be a part of which committees. So why is this concept of not including a minister in some committees? See, like I told you that this is our Lok Sabha. In Lok Sabha, some MPs are made ministers which form the executive. Fine. Now, to control the executive, you have made some committees. And in that committee of parliament, you are putting ministers. And executive is nothing but ministers. So is the minister going to question himself? Right? So there are some committees, some very special committees in which it is written for it's a rule. There's a rule that the minister cannot be a part of that particular committee. So these are those committees. It's a list of those committees. Important one among those are committee on estimate, to estimate the budget. Okay, it monitors the estimates of the government. See, what is estimate? What does estimate committee do? Every year government makes a budget. What is the meaning of budget? Budget simply means that in the month of February, government says that in next financial year, we are estimating that our revenues will be this much and our expenses will be this much. Okay, for that there's a estimate committee. Similarly, there are committee on public accounts. We are going to see them here. Okay, this estimate committee, public account committee. Committee on government assurances, the departmental standing committees. Committee for women, petitions, subordinate legislation and welfare of SC and ST. So just read these 5-6 times, okay, just to learn that minister cannot be a part of these committees. Departmental standing committees. So departmental standing committees were formed in 1993. Initially 17 were there. Right now there are 24 departmental standing committees. There are 31 members, 21 from Lok Sabha and 10 from Rajya Sabha. Now in Lok Sabha there are around 550 members. Okay, now of those 550 members, who are those 21 people who will be part of this committee? Who will decide this? The Speaker of Lok Sabha will decide. Similarly in Rajya Sabha, the chairman will decide. Okay, and the term of the members is 1 year. The 24 committees currently cover all the ministries and departments of the central government. What is their work? See, there is a committee, suppose. Okay, now this committee is focused on finance ministry, suppose, right? So the work of this committee is to study that to study the demand for grants, the long-term policy of the finance ministry, okay, the bills that the finance ministry brings in the parliament, such things. Now one important thing is that these committees do not monitor the day-to-day matters and they do not study all the bills. Let us say finance ministry introduces 10 bills in a session. So this committee will not study all 10. It will study only those bills that are referred to the committee. Okay. The chairman will, the presiding officer will say that, okay, these bills shall be referred to the committee. Only those bills this committee will study, not all the bills. There are 3 important financial committees: Public Account Committee, Estimate Committee, and Committee on Public Undertaking. Important because UPSC has already asked questions on them. The work of Public Account Committee is to examine the audit reports submitted by the CAG. The 3 audit reports submitted by CAG every year are appropriation account, audit report on appropriation account, audit report on finance account, and audit report on public undertakings. Okay, for prelims you should learn that how many members are there in the committee and how are the members elected. Okay, so in all the 3 committees the members are elected through proportional representation, not through FPTP, not nominated by the speaker. In departmental standing committee it was the speaker who was nominating, but these are financial committees, very important committees, so here it is by proportional representation. Term is 1 year of all the 3, the term of the members. Okay, in Public Account Committee there are 22 members, 15 from Lok Sabha, 7 from Rajya Sabha. Same is the case with Committee on Public Undertakings. For Estimate Committee there are 30 members from Lok Sabha and none from Rajya Sabha. How are you going to learn this fact? The thing is simple. Like I explained you, that the work of Estimate Committee is to examine the budget. Okay, now tell me, if budget is not passed in Lok Sabha, what will happen? Okay, the government may fall down, right? Then in all probability. So the real tension about passing the budget is in the Lok Sabha. Okay, so this committee has members only from Lok Sabha. It is just a trick to learn. Okay, there are none members. There are no members from Rajya Sabha. The chairman of Public Account Committee is from the opposition. He is appointed by the speaker. In all the three cases, the chairman is appointed by the speaker. The thing that differs is in PAC, chairman is from opposition. In estimates committee, the chairman is from the ruling party, and in committee on public undertakings, the chairman is from Lok Sabha. Okay. PAC was first formed in 1921 under the Government of India Act 1919. Estimate Committee was formed in 1950. It is also known as Continuous Economy Committee, and Committee on Public Undertakings was formed in 1964. There are some important committees to inquire. There is a committee on petition. Okay, there are any petitions related to the union subjects. To examine such petitions, there is a committee on petition. Each Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have their separate committees. Earlier we saw here there is one PAC. In that one PAC, there are some members from Lok Sabha and some from Rajya Sabha. But here in inquiry committees, there are different committees. Lok Sabha has a separate committee, Rajya Sabha has a separate committee. 15 members in Lok Sabha, 10 in Rajya Sabha. Committee on Privileges to examine breach of privilege, Lok Sabha 15, Rajya Sabha 10. Ethics Committee to enforce a code of conduct. The code of conduct was to enforce it. There is Ethics Committee. Okay, it was the code of conduct for MPs. It has not been in existence since 1950. Okay, it was brought in 2000 for the Lok Sabha and 1997 for Rajya Sabha. Some other important committees that UPSC has mentioned in some of its previous year questions are Committee on Government Assurances. A minister makes a promise on the floor of the House. Now, what is the status? Has the minister worked something on it? Okay, what is the status of that promise? To examine such things, there is Committee on Government Assurances. In Lok Sabha, the committee has 15 members, Rajya Sabha 10 members. Committee on Subordinate Legislation. See, Parliament does not make very detailed laws. Okay, usually the laws are of 5 or 10 pages. Laws lay down the basic structure, but to implement the law, some rules and regulations have to be made. Okay, so that work is not of the Parliament, that work is of the executive. The bureaucrats frame those rules and everything. Now the thing is, this executive, just to examine whether the executive is properly using its power to make subordinate legislation. These rules, orders, all these things are subordinate legislation. So whether the executive is properly using these powers or is it exceeding those powers, right? To keep an eye, there is this committee. 15 members in Lok Sabha, 15 in Rajya Sabha. Rules Committee and Business Advisory Committee. These are mainly for proper functioning of the two houses. So obviously their chairman will be, their ex officio chairman will be the speaker in Lok Sabha and the chairman in the Rajya Sabha. Now some previous year questions. What kind of questions UPSC asks for committees? 2019. In India, which of the following review the independent regulators in sectors like telecom, insurance, electricity? Look, regulators are a part of executive, right? Now, I have told you earlier also that this is your parliament, this is your executive. Now, the work of parliament is to control the executive. One of the works of parliament is to keep an eye on the executive, because in India, executive is responsible to the legislature because it is formed from the legislature. Fine. Now, one of the ways of controlling the executive is through parliamentary committees. So first option is ad hoc committee set up by parliament, correct? Parliamentary department related standing committees, correct? Okay, first and two are correct, hence option 1 is correct. Fine. Other things also, you know that the work of Finance Commission is to recommend to the President about the devolution of taxes between center and states. Okay, the work of Finance Commission is not to get answers from Telecom Ministry or insurance or something like that. right? Prelims 2018. So here a description of a committee is given, the work done by a committee is given, and it is asked which committee it is referred here. The answer is Committee on Subordinate Legislation. This I already explained to you, that the power to make regulations, rules, sub-rules, bylaws, all that is the power of executive. To monitor that, there is Committee on Subordinate Legislation. Prelims 2013 question. 2013 and 2007 there were two questions on Parliamentary Committee on Public Account. Okay, Committee on Public Account. So here we studied about the Public Account Committee. The work was to examine the reports of CAG on these accounts, appropriation, finance and public undertakings. 22 members, and chairman is from opposition, appointed by speaker. Fine. Now see the question. How many members? 25. Wrong. And 25 from Lok Sabha? Wrong. Scrutinize appropriation account and finance account. Correct. Examine reports of CAG. Correct. Right. So 2 and 3 are correct. 2007 question. Chairman of Public Account Committee. Chairman is appointed by speaker. Correct. Okay. Who are the members? Members are from Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and eminent persons. No, not eminent persons. There were 15 from Lok Sabha and 7 from Rajya Sabha, making 22 members. Where is the question of this eminent person? Okay, so second is wrong. 2014 question, which is the largest committee? So largest committee is Ethics Committee, Estimates Committee. Remember Estimate Committee we said 30 from Lok Sabha and 0 from Rajya Sabha. Estimates the budget, okay, examines the budget. So it is the largest. Other were 22. Okay, 15 plus 7. Prelims 2001. In what way Indian Parliament exercises control over administration? Through committees. Correct. Now one could be confused about these consultative committees. What are these consultative committees? This is Parliament. This is Executive. Parliament tries to control Executive. However, Executive may also want to consult the MPs. Okay, the minister may want to consult some MPs on some matter. To ensure, to facilitate this consultation, there are consultative committees. Okay, these are constituted by Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. These are for informal discussion between the ministers and the MPs. Okay, membership is voluntary. From Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, whoever MP wants to be a part of them, he can become part of these, member of these committees. And the chairman is obviously the minister or the junior minister, that is Minister of State. Fine. So there was this news about the possible violation of Article 164(1)(a). So last year in March, when there was lockdown, the government was being changed in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, Congress government was brought down and BJP government was formed. Now, how do you, make sure that the MLAs from the opposition or from the another party become part of your party? How do you ensure that? You obviously give them some kind of incentive. That incentive can be cash incentive, or you promise to make them ministers or something like that. So there is always a tendency to make as many MPs a minister as possible, right? So therefore, to increase the number of ministers, the Madhya Pradesh government they kind of breached the limit on the number of ministers that can be there. Okay, so by the 91st Constitution Amendment Act 2003, a limit was imposed on the size of Council of Ministers. Okay, so in the central government, the Council of Ministers should have minimum 12 ministers, including the Prime Minister, and maximum 15% of the strength of Lok Sabha. In states also same thing. For Delhi, there is maximum 10% limit. So in Delhi there are 70 MLAs, so there can only be 7 ministers, including the Chief Minister. Okay, now what is the concept? Why do we need to impose? Why was such a limit imposed? So it is against the same story. This is Lok Sabha. From Lok Sabha, you made some ministers which form the executive. Okay. Now to keep your all these 50% MPs happy so that they don't go to the opposition, what you're going to do is you're going to make all of them, all these 50% MPs, you make them minister. Because when they become minister, they can earn lots of money. Okay, they will have lots of power. So to keep all of them happy, you make all of them the minister. Now when half of your parliament is part of executive, how the hell will parliament control the executive? How will it put a question on the executive? How will it take any action against the executive? Not possible, no? So therefore there has to be a limit that only small amount of legislature can become executive. Right? So therefore this limit was imposed by this Amendment Act, 91st Amendment 2003. Now that is about the size of Council of Minister. Now about the size of the assemblies. Okay, in the center, the maximum strength of Rajya Sabha as given by the constitution is 250, and for Lok Sabha the maximum strength is 552. Okay, now actually the strength is 550 plus 2. Plus 2 is about the Anglo-Indians that the president nominates. Now those Anglo-Indians will no longer be given the seats. Those 2 seats will not be given to them. So in future it's going to be 550. But anyways, the official website of Lok Sabha still mentions that the constitution fixes the maximum strength of Lok Sabha as 552. Okay, so my recommendation to you is, in prelims, if UPSC gives the figure 550, mark it as correct. If UPSC gives the figure of 552, mark that also as correct. Okay. In states, the size of legislative council, in center we have Rajya Sabha, in some states we have legislative council. The size of legislative council, minimum 40 MLCs and maximum 1/3 of SLA. Which 6 states in India have legislative council? UP, Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra. Okay. The size of legislative assembly, minimum 60 MLAs, maximum 500. Okay. Suppose tomorrow UP or Bihar says that the population of our state is quite large, and to properly represent people, we are going to increase the number of MLAs. You can't say that. Okay. Constitution has imposed a limit of 500. However, there are some small states, for them the minimum number of MLAs is reduced. Nagaland 46, Mizoram 40 and 34 gas. Goa, Arunachal, Sikkim. Okay, this is not necessary. You have to just, for prelims, just remember this. Fine. So UPSC can give a statement. Constitution specifies the size of Council of Ministers. Correct? Wrong. Constitution does not specify the size of Council of Minister. Constitution only, through these amendments, Constitution specifies the limits, minimum and maximum. How many ministers one needs to be made, that is decided by the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister. Fine. Constitution imposes the limits, not the actual number. Office of Prophet. See, this is Parliament, this is Executive. Only a small part of Parliament is Executive. Now, Executive means ministers, the Council of Ministers, right? But in the Executive, there are some other posts also which are quite lucrative. Why was the limit imposed of 15%? Because government had a tendency to make all MPs happy and make them minister. So this limit of 15% was imposed. Now since there are, besides ministers also, there are many other posts, like there are many government companies, right? In those government companies, Sarkari company, there is a lot of scope to earn money or to show your power, right? So there are many other posts also which are quite lucrative. So what government will do is, If government can't make everyone MP, sorry, if government can't make everyone minister, government will make these MPs happy by giving such post. Okay, such post in the government. There are many autonomous bodies of the government, right? Who selects the chairman of some of such autonomous bodies or institutions? It is obviously the government, right? So this is wrong, because if you are making MPs happy by giving such post, you are weakening the control of parliament over the executive, right? So such other posts also, okay, giving MPs such other posts also has to be stopped, and that is called as the concept of office of profit. Okay, so office of profit, is it mentioned in the constitution? Yes, constitution articles 102 for MPs and 191 for MLAs and MLCs. Representation of People's Act 1951 also mentions it in section 9A. The purpose is separation of power. So this concept was borrowed from the Britain. Now some people think that office of profit means that a minister, or let us say a MP, cannot own a business or cannot do a private job. No, this is not true. Okay, we are not saying that you cannot earn any profit, you have to earn only what is given to you as a salary of an MP. No, I told you now, the concept here is that MPs should be able to independently control the executive. That is the concept. Whether these MPs are doing some private business or not, that is a separate thing. Okay, that is not office of profit. President, vice president, minister, all these offices are not considered as office of profit. Okay, because some MPs were made minister, and then you say that, oh, you're a minister and you're an MP also, so it is office of profit, so you're disqualified. You can't say like that, okay, because it's a parliamentary form of government. So there are some exemptions also. Who gives exemptions? There are some posts also in autonomous bodies or something like that. Parliament, by making a law, or the state legislature by making a law, can say that some posts will not be considered as office of profit. By making a law, they can say such a thing. Okay, so here for prelims, remember that this office of profit concept applies to member of parliament, MLAs and MLCs. It is not defined in the constitution. Constitution mentions it, but it does not define that of these executive offices, which of these will be considered for office of profit, which will not be considered as office of profit. So such detailed definition is not given by the constitution. There is no limit on how many posts you can exempt. Any number of executive posts you can exempt. So it's a big loophole. Parliament or state can make laws to give this exemption. Now, if there is a dispute that whether this MP or MLA is holding an office of profit or not, that thing is decided by the Election Commission of India. Based on its findings, Election Commission gives a recommendation to the President for MP and to the Governor for MLA or MLC, and the President or Governor is bound by the recommendation of the Election Commission. Okay. However, that legislator has freedom to approach Supreme Court or High Court. Okay. So tomorrow, if Election Commission recommends to the President that please disqualify this member of parliament because he is holding an office of profit, and President issues an order that yes, this person stands disqualified, okay, he shall be removed from his post. Now that person, that MP, can go to any high court in India and say ki please reverse the president's order. So that is possible. Okay, high courts can reverse president's order. Test for office of profit. So it is not defined in the constitution. However, in a 2001 case, Supreme Court said that to decide whether a executive office is an office of profit or not, we will see whether that person was appointed by the government, whether it is a government's power to remove him, does government pay him, does government control his functions, and what exactly is that person doing. Okay, so what happens is there is also a post of parliamentary secretary. Like I told you that there are only few ministerial posts, 15% limit is there, and there are some other posts also in the executive. However, there are some MPs, they say to the government that I want to become a minister. However, there is limit on the number of posts. So government is quite clever. government makes a new post called as parliamentary secretary. Okay, government has created a new post called parliamentary secretary. The facilities that an MP or MLA who is parliamentary secretary, those facilities are same as that of a junior minister. Okay, and their functions are also similar like of a minister. They chair the meetings, they call the bureaucrats, they get their office, their accommodation, everything, right? So mainly parliamentary secretary is just like a minister only. The only thing is that the designation, the words minister is not used because you want to bypass that 15% limit. Okay, in Jaya Bachchan case, Supreme Court said that it is not necessary that by holding office of profit you have to earn some profit. Supreme Court said that even if you are not earning any profit, but by holding such an office, there is a possibility, there is a potential that you may earn some profit, you may earn something from it, right? So therefore, such a potential to yield profit is also called as the office of profit. Okay, these things are not much relevant for prelims. For prelims C, UPSC asked such a simple question in 2019. Read the third statement. The term office of profit is well defined in the constitution. No, it is not well defined. So third is wrong, and third statement is given in three options. So by elimination 1 and 2 are correct. Statement 1 says that through this act, Parliament can exempt certain offices from office of profit, and this act has been amended 5 times. So you may not know these detailed facts, but you know this basic thing that constitution does not define the office of profit. Fine. So see, office of profit is not a small thing. You may think that it's a very like normal si baat hai. It's not like that. It's a very powerful tool because whichever party is in power, it has the power to influence MLAs or MPs. For example, to keep the MP or MLA happy, it can offer them the post of a minister. Since there is a 15% limit, the MPs will be offered some other post in the executive. Okay, now all posts in the executive are not very lucrative. Okay, someone is in the, let's say, road ministry, very lucrative post. In road ministry you will get lots of money, right? Someone is in let's say archaeological survey, there won't be much money to earn. All right, so all posts are not very lucrative. So if you want to keep some MP or MLA happy, you offer them money. Okay, that money comes from the taxes we pay. From that money only somehow it is diverted to these people, but not everyone can be purchased. So some agencies are used like CBI, ED, NIA. Okay, these agencies conduct the raid, then the media channels show such a raid in such a way that this person is definitely a culprit. Okay, and these agencies also call for questioning not only that MLA or MP but also his family members. So that creates a pressure. So office of profit is not a small thing. Okay, it is almost equivalent to your corruption and misuse of government offices. Rajya Sabha. See, when our constitution came into force on 26 January 1950, same day, obviously our parliament was officially founded. However, elections had to be conducted. Therefore, it is only in 1952 that the first sitting of Lok Sabha and first sitting of Rajya Sabha happened. However, officially the names Lok Sabha for House of People and Rajya Sabha for Council of States, officially these names were adopted only in 1954. Okay, so Lok Sabha represents the people, Rajya Sabha represents the states and union territories. However, not all union territories get representation in Rajya Sabha. There are only 3 UTs in Rajya Sabha: Delhi, 3 seats for Delhi, 1 seat for Puducherry, and 4 seats for Jammu Kashmir. Okay. Also, the states have unequal representation. In the 4th schedule of Constitution, a list is given that which state will have how many seats in Rajya Sabha, and that list was made on the basis of population. So in India's Rajya Sabha, Council of States, Uttar Pradesh has maximum number of seats, that is 31. However, in USA, the Senate has only 100 seats. There are 50 states in USA. From each state there are 2 seats. So all states in USA have equal representation in their upper house, in the Senate. Okay, this we studied in Polity Class 1. That like in India we have Parliament, there they have Congress. India's lower house Lok Sabha, their lower house is House of Representatives. Our Rajya Sabha, their Senate. So that's a huge difference. Maximum strength of Rajya Sabha fixed by the constitution is 250. Currently there are 245 MPs in Rajya Sabha. 12 are nominated. 8 represent the states, the UTs, 3 Delhi, 1 Puducherry, 4 JNK, and 225 from states. The term of Lok Sabha is 5 years. The term of Rajya Sabha is 6 years. This is wrong. Okay. See, the term of Rajya Sabha is not 6 years. The term of members of parliament of Rajya Sabha is 6 years. Rajya Sabha is a continuing chamber. We say that currently there is 17th Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha is dissolved and then a new Lok Sabha is formed. No such thing happens in Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha is never dissolved. Okay. Also, for Rajya Sabha, when a by-elections are done, by-elections only for the remaining time. The term of a particular member is 6 years. And suppose he dies in 3 years. Okay. So after by-election, whoever new member will come, he will remain only for the next 3 years. Okay. If you give him proper 6-year term, then that formula of 1/3 members retiring every 2 years, that formula will be disturbed. Right. Therefore, by-election, the remaining by-election is done only for the remaining time of that particular member. Who conducts the election? Who votes? In Lok Sabha election, it is you and me who vote. But in Rajya Sabha election, we don't vote. It is the elected MLAs who vote. In Lok Sabha, election is by FPTP, first past the post system. In Rajya Sabha, it is by proportional representation. Qualification, you have to be Indian citizen and age 30. See, to be a Lok Sabha MP, age should be 25. To be Rajya Sabha MP, minimum age should be 30. To be president, minimum age should be 35. 25, 30, 35. When we go to vote for Lok Sabha elections, there is an option of nota, none of the above. Such an option is not available to elected MLAs when they vote for Rajya Sabha. Okay, so nota is not available. We vote for Lok Sabha by secret ballot, but voting for Rajya Sabha is by open ballot. So we studied this election because elections of Rajya Sabha were in news. Also in news was that 8 MPs of Rajya Sabha were suspended. So UPSC can ask that who can suspend a Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha MP and who can revoke that suspension. Right? So who can suspend a Lok Sabha MP? See, remember one formula. Suppose this is Lok Sabha. There are so many members. Okay. Now if a particular member is creating trouble, okay, then if the entire house votes, okay, by simple majority, if the house votes कि we kick out this person, okay, this person is creating nuisance, so kick him out, let's suspend him, then house can do this. And if house says that this person has asked forgiveness, okay, he has said sorry, so let's bring him back, let's cancel his suspension. So that also the house can do. So house can do anything. Fine. So remember this, that house can suspend a Lok Sabha MP for the entire session. House can also revoke that suspension. This is true for Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. So this thing you have learned. Another thing, in Lok Sabha, there is lot of nuisance generally. Okay. So every time it is not possible that you get the whole house to vote on it. Therefore, the speaker has been given power that speaker can suspend a Lok Sabha MP for the entire session or for 5 sittings, whichever is less. Okay. That is a special power given to the speaker. No other power the speaker has. Speaker cannot revoke the suspension. Rajya Sabha chairman cannot suspend a Rajya Sabha MP. Rajya Sabha chairman cannot revoke the suspension. Okay, House can do anything, and about the speaker, he can suspend someone, because usually lot of ruckus is created in the Lok Sabha. Okay, what maximum Rajya Sabha chairman can do, he can ask the member to get out of the Rajya Sabha for that particular day. He cannot suspend that person. Okay. Another news: a nominated MP of Rajya Sabha had to resign due to 10th schedule. Why? Okay, so two things UPSC can ask. UPSC can ask about nominated members, and it can ask about the 10th schedule. There are 12 nominated members nominated by the president. 4 fields from which they can be. This UPSC can ask. The fields are science, art, literature, and social service. Okay. US Senate has no nominated members. I told you they have 50 states, 2 MP from each state, and the strength of Senate is 100. So there are no nominated members. In India, there are nominated members. Now suppose today the President of India says that you are a good person, I am going to nominate you to the Rajya Sabha. And you tell the President कि sir, you are nominating me, but I am already a member of BJP or Congress or any other party. Is that a problem? No issue. Okay, you can be a member of any political party while you are nominated. No issues in that. Suppose you are not a member of any political party, okay, and you have been nominated. You are a social, you do a lot of social service. Okay, your social service has been recognized by the president. He says you are a good person, I will nominate you. Okay, and you are touched by his gesture. You know that the president is a rubber stamp. Actually, it is the government, the party in power. It is a BJP that has given you this opportunity. So in that case, you will feel, wow, BJP is such a nice party. They have made me a Rajya Sabha MP. I will join this party. So once you are nominated, can you join a political party? Yes, you can. Whatever political party you want, you can join, but you have to join it within 6 months. However, if you don't join a political party in 6 months, and after 6 months you join any political party, then you will be disqualified under 10th schedule. Fine. Now what is 10th schedule? One thing that students often think that 10th schedule is only for MPs, MP of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Yes, it is for them, but it is also for MLAs also, MLAs and MLCs. Okay, so it is for both center and state. It was introduced by 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay, so 10th schedule by 52nd Amendment 1985. 52nd, 5 into 2, 10. Who decides whether a legislator should be disqualified or not under 10th schedule? It is a chairman or the speaker. Okay, if you have to disqualify someone due to office of profit, then that decision is by the election commission, who recommends to the president or the governor. But if you have to decide disqualification under 10th schedule, then it is the chairman or the speaker. What are the grounds? You disobey the party. Party says that you vote on such a bill in positive or negative. You don't obey that. You voluntarily resign from the party, or you are an independent MP or MLA and then you join a party, or a nominated MP joins party after 6 months. Okay, why is this? Clause number 1, 2 and 3. What is the logic of this? Logic is simple, that this is the public and this is you. You are fighting for elections. Now when you are fighting for elections, people give you vote not just because you are a good person or they like you, also because you have been given ticket by some political party, right? So many people think that कि यार ये political party best है, so this political party is awesome, so this political party, whichever candidate gets ticket of this political party, I will vote for that person, right? So therefore, since you win elections on the basis of the political party, you should obey that party, right? So therefore these clauses are there. It doesn't apply to mergers. Okay, if 2/3 members agree to merge one party into another, then this disqualification will not happen. It doesn't bar contesting re-election. So this is one political party, this is another political party. Okay, it is one MLA. Okay, this political party says you come to our side. Now obviously when this person comes to this side, he will be disqualified under 10th schedule, है ना? So his seat, the seat, assembly seat will get vacant. If the seat is vacant, there will be re-election. So can this person who switched sides, can he again contest that re-election and get re-elected? Yes, this is allowed. Okay, there is no ban on such a practice. Okay, and is a judicial review possible? Yes. In 1992 Kyoto Hologan case, Supreme Court said that judicial review, whether the speaker or chairman has taken the correct decision or not, that the courts can decide. Okay, so it is such a strict law. If you don't obey your party, you will be kicked out. Still, MLAs switch sides. Why? Because there are two loopholes. Loophole number one: speaker does not decide on the application. A person switched sides. Fellow MLAs or MPs complained to the speaker that please disqualify this person, but speaker is not deciding. Once speaker decides, then a judicial review can be done. Court can say whether speaker has done the right thing or not. But if speaker is not deciding, then how will the court act? So there is no judicial review at pre-decisional stage. Against this loophole, Supreme Court has recently given a ruling that the speaker has to decide on the application within 3 months. If a complaint has been made, then within 3 months speaker has to decide. There is another loophole. It allows group defection. If one or two MLAs switch the sides, then obviously they are disqualified. But if 2/3 members, this group merger happens, okay, then they are not disqualified. So it's a big loophole, because earlier political party would purchase only one or two MLA, but now they will purchase the entire party, like happened in Sikkim. In April 2019 elections, the Sikkim, okay, what is the minimum number of MLAs needed in Sikkim? 30. We studied it earlier, na? 30. Anyways, the Sikkim assembly has 32 members. Okay, it has 32 members. In these elections, out of these 32 seats, BJP got 0 seats. 0 seats. 3 months later, it had 10 seats. Okay, 3 months later, BJP had 10 MLAs, its own MLAs, not of any ally. BJP had its own 10 MLAs in the house without an election. How? Because there is some party, SDF, which had, I think, 13 seats in the house, and 10 of those people were converted to this party, to BJP. Okay, so due to this conversion, without winning any seat, they had 10 seats. So you purchase the entire party instead of individual MLAs. So it's another loophole. Okay, so that's it for this class. This class was in English. हिंदी वाली क्लास भी हमारे YouTube चैनल पे अपलोडेड है. If you want the PDF, so the link of downloading the PDF is given in the description box of this video. Next video will come within 3-4 days. Thank you very much.